To do is talk about scholarship and fellowship opportunities we have at WSU. I know for the MSU people, unless you want to come and join us for your master's or something, would probably be not directly relevant, but I think some of the things you would hear would still be of interest to you. All right, so I hope you're learning and keep on listening to things as they happen. And so this will be something that some of you would find, I'm sure, very, very interesting. There are actually three things that I want to talk about. One is an NSF-funded CyberCorp Scholarship for Service program we have at WSU that started last year and will continue for another 4 years now because it's a 5-year project. The second one I want to tell you about is an international research experience for students, also NSF-funded program we have at WSU, where we get a chance to send students to Linköping University in Sweden. And the topic is cybersecurity and AI. This is the second one I want to tell you. And the third one is another kind of scholarship for service program that is closely tied with the Department of Defense called Cyber Service Academy. CJ has mentioned towards the end of his presentation about this, and there is something called SMART scholarship, which I haven't put here, which I would talk about. So pay attention to these three things. And if I get off track and start talking about something else, then you say, no, you didn't say that. That was in the agenda. You can hold me accountable for that. Those are the three things I want to tell you. CyberCorps is a scholarship for service that was something that existed for quite some time now. So it's 2000 when it got first introduced, and it is something that is a result of National Defense Authorization Acts, and it has been something that is revised over time. And the key idea is the need for cybersecurity workforce in the US. It was recognized 25 years, 26 years ago that there has to be some good way in which the nation would invest on people so that they would meet this need. So you have heard a lot now, and I think your interest in cybersecurity and everything that you hear about as if it was some recent phenomenon. No, we did have a need for that and a gap in workforce for a very long time. So what the nation decided, and this was laid by National Science Foundation, and they work closely with the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, was to say, let's get the students that are best equipped to do something like this, have them a full ride scholarship. And I'm not kidding, it's a big investment, all tuition paid and stipends you would get and so on. That's the scholarship part. And in return, they would work for the government. That's the idea behind it. And it has been successful. And there are many universities in the country that have got that type of program. And at WSU, we got it for the first time a year ago. And so that's what the SFS program is about. And then I did mention a couple of relevant acts. And every now and then, whenever there is other bigger thing that makes this even more justifiable, like the Chips and Science Act of 2022, it just gets added. Just so you know, there is also a big confluence between cybersecurity and AI, which you will see in this workshop manifested in many ways. And NSF is now going in a newer direction for this program called Cyber AI, Cybersecurity and AI. And we are also headed in that direction at WSU. And so next time you hear this, maybe a year or two from now, you may not hear it with the name CyberCorps SFS anymore. It might be Cyber AI, whether it is AI, the bigger topic, and the cybersecurity of those systems. That's one direction. Or cybersecurity, the bigger topic, and AI coming and helping, which is a direction that we are better aligned at WSU than that will be pursuing. So this has got a long history. What does the SFS program try to do? Educate high caliber scholarship recipients. So those people who get selected to this program would be students that have got both an academic and other preparations of high caliber with strong existing academic program in cybersecurity. Everywhere you go, if you see as an FS school, there must be a strong cybersecurity program in that school that made it be, getting this award. They get full scholarship and support for up to 3 years, and I will break that down in a slide later on. And when they complete their education, the recipients would be obligated, they would sign a an agreement with the government to work for the government. And Ryan, your questions about, what if I get a bigger salary somewhere else and so on will not be okay. You will have to work for the government, but not for the rest of your life. For as many years as you receive scholarship. 2 years, you work for government, 2 years, and then you are free. I don't think I want to wait until I get later to tell you. There are many people who I know are dear colleagues and have very successful careers. They were SFS scholars. They went to work for the government, for example, the Air Force Research Lab, and they never left. And there are very, very many examples like that. I have colleagues at PNNL who did the same thing. People can go and do, and there are some who would do a little bit more than what they are obligated and then go to industry or do their own thing. That's fine. But the vast majority of the ones I know who are very successful have actually stayed in government. And it's not just federal. It could be federal, state, local, tribal, or territorial government. The SFS program, because it is run, NSF does give us the money. We are an institution. We handle these things, but does somebody, meet their obligation requirements? Where do they end up after graduation? What do they do if they have to do security clearance? All of these things are administered by OPM, and so there is a close, connection with that. The goal is no-brainer. So the country is investing, to think of more like parents investing on their children's education for the success of their lives later on. Think of the government investing on workforce to work for the government. That's the enhanced security of critical information infrastructure. Some of these words are a little outdated. I would have seen a lot of AI, and that's what probably would be added. But the essence of it remains critical information systems to enhance that security, increase national capacity, produce new entrants into government cybersecurity workforce. Some of these things are said slightly different words of the same thing. And I did pick up this from the official SFS program and things like that, so you would see. But the government is also interested in investing in research and development capabilities in cybersecurity. So the students who would be trained working for the government is not the end goal only. There would be also a chance through the existence of programs like that in universities for their research and development capabilities to be enhanced. And to also strengthen partnerships between institutions of higher learning and relevant employment sectors. If you hear Dean Parta or Venera who was talking, they would, when you are in an academic institution, you would be very busy with training your students, but you may not necessarily have the right connections who the employers are. You make extra effort. But if specifically when it comes to employment with government, then the SFS program at least creates a situation like that. For example, having a job fair centrally at DC National every year, where you get access to these places where qualified agencies would come, talk about what they do. And so the program does a great, great job through those type of activities. What do you get if you're an SFS scholar? You get your tuition paid by the program. If you're an undergraduate, this is true for whatever I'm going to talk about. SFS will apply for undergraduates and graduates. The SFS program with about WSU does both, but we emphasize more on the undergraduate side. And so the numbers that are quoted here would be either of these categories. For undergrads, the stipend is quite generous, $27,000 per year. For graduates, it's $37,000, and that is slightly higher than what graduate students would get through other NSF type grants. And then there is on top of that, a professional allowance of up to $6,000 that would take you, for example, to the job fair that happens in DC, or sometimes they arrange virtual, or you could use them for whatever makes sense in your situation. For example, take certifications or attend conferences and things like that. And that's about $6,000. So all of these things are financial benefits. The commitment, one is study. Before you graduate, you're expected to be a full-time student, maintain good academic standing, and I would also talk about what it would mean specifically to specific universities, but maintain good academic standing because this OPM kind of oversees how things are, sees about your resumes, it tries to match you up with agencies and so on. So they run surveys, they would ask questions, you need to report about what you are doing in terms of meeting your obligations. That is a requirement while you study to respond to those requests is one thing, and at least complete at least one internship. So the internship for undergraduates would be for 2 years typically, and in between the 2 years that you get this you are under this scholarship, there will be 1 year where there will be a summer, and you're required to have internship with similarly as in government, qualifying agencies, and OPM helps with that, at least keeping record, but it is up to the students and their mentors to find them. And that's not always easy. The Viceroy program is a great vehicle for us. We have SFS scholars in our program, currently 4, who have gotten internships through Viceroy, and that counts. And so whatever internship you get through Viceroy would automatically meet the requirement for SFS because you're working with one type of government, the Department of Defense, within Viceroy. In SFS, you could have other departments also are relevant, but we do it in that way because they feed each other in a great way. Participate in experiential learning opportunities expected of SFS students, and they are also expected to be very active in looking for employment to meet their post-graduation requirements. They are not going to be waiting until they graduate to start applying. So they would do this. You would do that too. Anybody who would do that too, but in a more proactive way. After graduating, expected to find job. Sometimes it takes time, especially the last year was a challenge for many universities. Just maybe mention it in passing, 2025 was a challenging year for everybody. SFS schools that had programs going on were required to not recruit in that year. There were only 4 universities in the country that were allowed to have students to be recruited. And the reason for that is because they were funded that same year. So they were an exception. So we were lucky. So we recruited our first cohort of students in 2025, but other universities didn't. And so the hiring would also show a similar thing. And in general, it should be possible because if we say there is a gap between what is need and the talent is not coming, somebody must, when they graduate, should find that. It's not should not be difficult, but sometimes it takes time. Sometimes there are other challenges to pass on. And therefore, it was a bit of a challenge last year. I don't expect it to be like that next time around and in the future now. So after graduating, full-time work in a qualifying position as a cybersecurity professional, in a qualified agency is expected, and provide documentations about these things to OPM, and WSU in our case is also a requirement. What sort of agencies do qualify? Federal executive agency, Congress, interstate agency, state, local, tribal government, these are all places. But the last one is also important. In some cases, there are some labs that have got this special name that would make them non-profit government affiliated ones also be qualifying agencies. So it's a long list. Requirements, you need to be US citizen or a lawful permanent resident. In addition, students must be full-time students with 2 years remaining. So if you are a student, you are rising senior in the year you apply. Now, you don't have enough time. You will have only 1 year left, and so it will be difficult. There are some cases where, in a special way, OPM may allow that if you commit to work for the government for 2 years, even though your support was for 1 year. But the normal thing is you are expected to have 2 years left in your study. If it is more than 2 years, there is a way to get up to 3 years, especially if you use the 3rd year to do your graduate studies. So MSU students, if you want to do your master's and come to WSU, you may be able to do that once you are a WSU student. And then there is some specific university-specific things that we would do, and I should probably be speeding up a little bit. Oh, I have plenty of time. I don't need to speed up. What does that WSU SFS program look like? Because it says you should also, in addition to meeting the national requirements for SFS, there are some university-specific things to do. So what do you do? What's specific for us? First, let me tell you where we are headed, how many things were left, and things like that. So we want to, through this program, which is funded for 5 years, train around 20 undergraduates and 6 graduates. So our SFS program is a combination of undergraduates and graduates. And the best example of what undergraduates mean is our Viceroy Scholars. Students in the CySER would be a great example of what an SFS scholar could look like, 20 of them within 5 years, and then up to 6 graduate students. And by that, I mean master's and PhD students. That's our aim. And we also are confident, work hard to try to provide excellent experience to SFS scholars, just as much as we do to Viceroy scholars. And in our case, our Viceroy scholars, our SFS scholars are also SFS scholars through integrated research, career mentoring, experiential learning, and most of these things you've heard them already in Viceroy and you know them, internship opportunities. We do that to our SFS scholars. Our first cohort began in fall 2025. I told you there was no new cohorts coming in that year in the country except for 4 universities, and WSU was one of them. Applications for next fall, there was a priority deadline in March, but we're still accepting. And so if you're really interested in this, I encourage you to apply. We have now a larger pool of applicants. The numbers we're shooting for are not that big, so you can see if we have a lot of students, then we would have to select, and your application package will matter, and we will interview. I personally interview candidates, and that's how the selection would happen. So if you're interested, apply, is my bottom line. And to apply, you go to the CySER website. On the menu on the left, there is a place that says SFS. If you go there, you'll get, and it will take you to a place to apply. For next cohort, which is when fall 26 students would come in, we would like to take 6 undergraduates and 2 graduate students, and they would be supported for 2 years. And if you add this up, we'll get to our 20 for 4 cohorts, and things are set up in this way. Eligibility requirement for our program. For undergrads, we want them to be either cybersecurity majors or computer science or software engineering or even computer engineering students, and they commit the CySER CAE-CO certificate. CySER students, in other words, that have enough number of cybersecurity courses to take is what it means, whereas the cybersecurity majors would take plenty cybersecurity courses, and so that's not a problem. Graduate students, they could be either master's or PhD. So for some of you, this may be relevant because you may do either a master's within 2 years or an accelerated master's through whatever you have done so far, and you can talk to me how you may be able to do that. They could be like that, and they could be in computer science or electrical engineering or software engineering, and they would be needed to, they would be required to take at least 4 senior level or graduate cybersecurity courses. That's the eligibility requirement. And they must commit, of course, to work for the government after graduation. That's our WSU specific SFS requirement. Who are the people? I lead this program, and my co-PIs are Jana Dopa, who specializes in AI, Monwar Hassan, which Venera mentioned, cybersecurity expert in cyber physical systems, and an NSF Career Award this year. Feng Hao Liu, who is an expert in cryptography, and someone who has been at WSU now for a couple of years, and James serves as the program coordinator for the program, just as he does for CySER. What are the areas we work on? AI and security, the connection going both directions. Security, we've heard this maybe many times now, security of AI and AI for security, we do both. Cyber physical systems, that's what Monwar does. Crypto, post-quantum security, which is a topic will be covered in this workshop. Software supply chain security, which CJ has brought up very many times. Hardware security, a big topic that's featured here, which we have a new faculty at WSU speaking about, and web security, which also is a subject of an activity for hands-on tomorrow, and Shulin will be leading that. That's what we do. Why did we decide to do this, and why did we succeed? Well, we had 2 foundations. One is the existence of the CySER program, and we have had it since 2021. And we have the new degree program that we started. Some of you are taking that degree program now. And because we have an ability to have your computer science courses covered in the first 2 years, we also have had graduates from the program, despite the fact that it was started in fall 2023. These are the 2 major foundations for it, but there is a big support from the college, from the school, from the university, with cybersecurity being a key priority area. And the proposal and the people who reviewed it agreed with the way in which we said that. And there are some very interesting interdisciplinary research strengths at EECS, including electronic design automation, AI and data science, power engineering, which also I would consider foundations. Do I really need to talk about this one? No, you're all CySER students, but I just wanted to have it up so that I would remind and recognize that the CySER program does have Montana State University, University of Idaho, and Central Washington University participating. And you know the focus areas within Viceroy, CySER, and the SFS program do have a lot of overlap. Cyber education is another area which we are very interested in. In addition to these technical courses that you take, what is a good way to do cyber education? James and I spend a lot of time writing great articles on this topic. Not everything that's happening in the country is a great way to do it, and how are we better done if we were to take lessons from educational psychology, best practices in education, hands-on activities, where should be courses ordered, what does a summer workshop like this have to do, and things like that. That's an interesting topic for us, and is emphasized in what you do. Those of you who are here, in past CySER seminars or workshops, we had students from the business college. We've got a business student potentially, right? You'll probably pencil. Is that what you do? You will do, yeah. So you're in computer science? Oh, okay. So that's CySER basic certificate. Probably for engineering students it might work, but most of you are, or all of you are WSU students. That is, going to be taking this certificate when you finish, and it has got requirements, 4 required courses, your senior design or cybersecurity, capstone being in cybersecurity, that's 1. You're required to do an internship to get this certificate, one of the Viceroy, Maven, or Envoy, or you can get it in internship. You attend at least once the summer workshop. When you are a CySER student, you will typically be for 2 years. And so this is your first year. And so the summer workshop is a requirement. Your peers who have done it for their second year now have done it last year, so they don't have to do it again. So summer workshop requirement, participation in mentored research, which we'll see the showcase of in the afternoon. And you attend the CySER seminars bi-weekly. And then we encourage. The last one is not a requirement. It's an encouragement for you to consider one of the foreign language there. And CJ's slides or his presentation should make it plenty clear why these languages are chosen for you to consider them, because they have direct connection with national security. The BS program in cybersecurity at WSU, I say this for those of you who are in computer science and may say, oh, is it too late? If, for example, if I want to switch to the cybersecurity degree or things like that. That's what I have primarily this reason. These slides for, I was very heavily involved in the design of this, into deciding what courses to put in it and how the courses should be. And for anybody who is in academia and wants to create a new degree in an undergrad, that's not something I would tell them to see, because it's not easy. You've got only 4 years. You've got 120 credits to squeeze in. You don't want them to graduate in 5 years, and you don't want to miss out on anything. So like, what does a Bachelor of Science degree mean? What areas should they be covering? And what would be a good way to have them foundations in computer science, for example, in the case of cybersecurity, fully satisfied? It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of optimization problems. Listen to the industry and say what they value, and things like that. After all of that, here is how we came up. Just so you kind of remember what the CySER CAECO thing stands for. The CA is Center of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity. That's a designation we already got in cyber research, but they've got another category called cyber operations. And there are knowledge units that designation requires, and we try to meet all of them. There are 10 required ones and 17 optional ones, out of which you have to have 4. And so the degree program, the courses, were created in such a way that this will be met. And at the time when our students graduate from here, we apply for it, the courses would reflect that. That was one. And the other is, of course, the things that I mentioned earlier. And here are the courses. Take a look at them, see what's happening next fall, take classes as much as you can. We're working, I'm also on the curriculum committee that Venera mentioned, which she chairs. And one thing we're doing, and I can say this even though it's not official yet, 327 is a prerequisite for everything. And sometimes that makes you lag. 428 we are proposing to make 327 a core requisite for it. In other words, you can do the two classes together. And I know that if you're a prepared student, that should not be a problem at all. And so 428 is going this fall, 327 goes every fall and spring. You can take them together this fall and reduce some of this time that might need to get you there. You may notice the senior design or the capstone course for cybersecurity is a 1 semester sequence course, as opposed to our computer science, which has got 2. The reason for it, we needed to be 120. We needed to cover all of those courses. We needed to listen to industry. And they said, in reality, you really don't have a whole lot of time for a project from start to completion, and a capstone that is in a semester actually better reflects what happens in reality. That was one input, but the real thing for us was there was no room for adding a third. I like it, and the first capstone has passed. Fall 2025 is when we had it. And the next time around, it will be a spring course regularly. We also have a new cyber ethics, law and ethics class, which I co-taught with a professor in ethics, Dr. Sherry Conklin, who will be leading an activity this afternoon. And that is a course that we would be making it a required course for all cybersecurity majors going forward. And the next offering will be in spring 2027. Am I doing it? All right. If you are following, I have done the first of the 3 things I said I will do. Now I am on my second thing. And my second thing has got 2 things at the same time. Why not? 2025 was a good year for us, not just because the SFS program could continue and we could recruit students. That's awesome. But it was also a year where WSU got designated a CAER, the Center of Academic Excellence in Cyber Research, and we're good for another 5 years. And I did attend the symposium on this for the first time 2 weeks ago, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of good things about the community, and a lot more schools than there are SFS schools. To be an SFS school, most of the time you're required to be a CAE, except for a few schools that have got an exception. Viceroy was very heavily represented in that symposium. CJ spoke there, and I did speak about getting to know a CAE kind of talk to the 800 plus people who came there. So that's one. The other thing that happened earlier was we got this National Science Foundation award for doing international research experience for students with a university that we had already a good collaboration with. It's in Sweden, Linköping, great university, but also very, very strong in cybersecurity and supercomputing and visualization centers and things like that. We got that award, and this spring, we sent our first cohort of students. 2 students from Tri-Cities, 2 students from the Pullman campus. All 4 of them are cybersecurity majors. You don't have to be a cybersecurity major to apply for this one, but these students happen to be. And the idea is for students to go for a semester, live in Sweden with their expenses and things like that covered with a $12,000 stipend, or fellowship, I should say, fellowship that they would be getting. And LIU has had a memorandum of agreement with WSU, which makes the students not to have to pay tuition when they take classes in Sweden. And credits that they would take when they take classes in Sweden can come back to WSU and count towards that. That means they would not need to extend their time, their program of study at WSU. And if they have to finish within 4 years, they can finish that. And the students that are there, we meet with them, me and the other co-PIs, to check in how they are doing by Zoom once they went to Sweden. And every time I go there, the excitement that I hear from them and what they get to do is mind-blowing. So they do classes, they do research, but they also get to explore Europe, Sweden, and they are doing very, very good at this latter one. And I was amazed. And I said, don't forget that you're there also to do research and take classes. But whatever that they do there is so amazing. This is still open, and you can apply. We have more applicants on this one than we have positions for, but I will say apply because I want to take the best students that was possible. Here is a little place where you could go and apply. And this is good for 3 years. Our first cohort has gone now. We'll have 2. There will be 1 next year, next spring, and then the year after. I would like to get an IRS program with this Linköping University, continue in other topics, but cyber and AI particularly. But there are other universities that I'm interested in Europe. I did study in Norway. University of Bergen is where I got my PhD. That's one place where I would like to have something like this set up in the future. But there are a number of other European countries that I have collaborators with, and we want to get there. If Scandinavia sounds interesting to you, and you have a spring semester that you don't mind, have a little bit of snow and then a lot of sunlight afterwards, and a lot of fun, plus very supportive colleagues. I'm impressed by their hospitality, what I have seen and how they arrange things, then apply. But think about it and apply, because we have got a pool that already is quite full. So you'll be competing with many smart people. 2 things finished. Now the third one. I told you about this CyberCorp Scholarship for Service. That's NSF funded, but there is an open for all kinds of governments, but there is one that's specific for the Department of Defense, and it's called Cyber Service Academy. The idea, the basic idea is the same. The kind of benefit you get, the obligation you have to work, and so on are almost identical. The difference is that this one doesn't start with an award the university getting and then trying to select students, recruit, and so on. It actually starts with the student. They apply, and if for the school has to be the center of academic excellence, which we are, and so we qualify. And when the student applies, they would find if there is a DoD place where there is an interest in this particular student, and then they come back and ask the university to write budget, write proposal to get funded, and then the funding comes to the university and then eventually to the student. And there has to be a certain number of students. If we get 1 or more students, that's good, and that have been accepted, their employer is already guaranteed because they showed interest in that student, then we get award and the student gets the scholarship. And that's called Cyber Service Academy. The application deadline for 2026 now is closed. They do it, I don't know, I want to say January, February or something, but it's now closed. But for next year, apply, and here is the website. And I really want to have a CSA fellowship for students. I didn't put it on this slide, but there is another thing called Smart Scholarship that's open for almost everything. You could do cyber, you could do physics, you could do any engineering related field and so on. And it has got a similar one, and that would work both for undergrads and grads. I don't have a slide on it and a lot of details, but that's another scholarship for service type of opportunity. But CSA is very much similar to what SFS is, and I'd like to see someone do this at WSU. Think about that, but you have already things to work on what we already have, but if you have friends, you can tell about them, and probably would put this a little bit more visibly in our CySER website. We've got another 10 minutes or so. Oh, nice. I finished all the things that I said. I promised 3 things, I talked about 3 things, and I didn't get off track and talk about other things, so I would consider this one good. All right, questions? Yeah.
The SFS program.
Yeah. Sure.
One is the job with a government body that we are obligated to fulfill. Is that like guaranteed employment, or is it still like you just owe it to them so that you'll work for them at some point?
Yeah.
Like they're not just gonna hire you.
Yeah. So there are 2 different questions there. Do you have a guaranteed job? No. You look for it and you get it, and that's one of the requirements you have, and that's one of the things you would do while you study to commit to be actively looking. OPM does again with creating the opportunity, like having the opportunities visible to students, having the resumes presented in the ways that others would see. Students would also see what opportunities exist, job fairs, and so on, and you get mentoring. We meet with our current SFA scholars a couple times a month, twice, every other week, and so on. And some of the things we talk about is about how actively to work for this and secure. So there is no guaranteed employment for a scholar, but there is a requirement for you to also not be wasting too much time after graduation looking for jobs. So you cannot, for example, say, Yes, thank you very much. You've supposed me for 2 years. Let me go to industry work for another 5 years, and then I'll come back to you for 2 years. No, you can't do that. There is, in fact, a time right after graduation. Right after graduation, you're expected. The only time you have is the time to look for a job if you don't get, because sometimes it may take some time, and so it's called a grace period. But the expectation, the agreement you would sign with the government, is to work for government right after graduation without interruption, unless some very extraordinary thing happens or something like that. Now, this is the expectation, but you're not left alone. You're not left alone to say, good luck. So if you get a job, great. If not, then we'll, it's not like that. There is an active effort on OPM. To some degree, NSF is also involved to make sure that you get a job. But if you are lazy and if you don't work actively to getting them, or if you don't perform well in interviews and so on, you may not get, and it may drag a little bit. So no guaranteed job. The CSA I talked about at the end does kind of bypass that, because there is already an agency who says, I'm interested in this profile of student and interested in hiring them. So you can call that guaranteed job, but it is not an offer yet, because they want to also check. And so it's more of like an expression of interest. And so I would bring it closer to securing a job when you still are studying. That's different. The SFS one is open and freer, and I would prefer the SFS way. Well, not prefer. There are advantages to the SFS way, because you want also to be open. There are very many different things that you could do in government, and you may have multiple things to choose from, each of which is qualifying.
What happens if you take the scholarship for like 2 years and then you will graduate, but it ends up that you're still missing credits, and like you have to do like half a year?
But you don't graduate and still have half a year.
So sorry, what if you take the scholarship, or would you not be able to take the scholarship if you don't have a clear path of graduation?
Partial years.
Count to full year.
So yeah, you did like a year and a half, then you'd be obligated to work 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Even if you didn't know at the time of applying for the scholarship, like if you would have to.
What would make you, one of the things you would do when you apply is your expected date of graduation, right? And so you should kind of know that. And if you are in doubt, I would put a semester like class, and that way they would know. But there are some students, and we have concrete example of this, who did not have a full 2 year left. They are planning to graduate 3 semesters after they started. That's okay, as long as you work for the government for 2 years, like James was saying.
I would add a couple points, in terms of finding employment after you graduate from the SFS program. You have some serious advantages there. While you're in the program, you have to do summer internships, so that helps connect you with future employers. There's also the annual job fair.
Yeah.
So that's just for SFS students, and you go and you meet various government agencies looking to hire. And also the government agencies are very much aware of the SFS program, and so they will look specifically to hire SFS students because they know they're going to be, their quality is going to be way well above average. So as an SFS graduate, you have a number of advantages finding a job quickly.
Okay, I said we have got 4 SFS students now, 3 undergrads and 1 grad, and one of the undergrad SFS scholars is sitting right here. James is an SFS scholar, so you can ask him questions if I didn't do a good job explaining how the program works. He is an expert now. Other questions? Yeah.
This is really impressive. That's
Sure.
really taken this quite a long ways.
Sure.
Since you started the cybersecurity. Is the SFS renewable, or does it end?
It is renewable, and most schools, if they do a good job, do get a renewal. We are just getting started with the first one for 5 years, and 4 years to go before we reapply, but it is renewable. So far it has been. They're headed in the direction of cyber AI, which we're very interested in. So most likely that may come at some point, but the program is renewable. U of I had it, and I think they renewed for a couple times in the past. Other questions? Okay, so we're on day one, so we should do 4 more days. They will be a lot of fun. So I don't know what will be a good way to sit. If James, you have another suggestion, but I think it's fine the way you're doing. But if we have multiple tables with some people, it probably will be a good idea. I'm not suggesting that you split this table. That's not what I'm saying, but will be one thing to think about in the afternoon. So come, there will be lunch probably soon coming. You don't need to go far. There are very nice places to sit around. In the afternoon, after the cyber